Okay. I'm gonna admit something, and this is true. This is the best team that ever played hockey. The Montreal Canadiens of the 1976-77 season, best team that ever played hockey, and I missed watching them by about 4 years. I was 4 years old when they won that cup, so I wasn't really keyed in on the whole Stanley Cup thing. Um, they finished with 60 wins, 8 losses, and 12 ties, and it's that 8 losses that stands as a record that I don't believe ever gets equaled. They're followed by the Kings at 34, 31, and 15. So the Kings come out of this season with 83 points. Might have felt good, but they're 49 points behind first place. Pittsburgh 34, 33, and 13. Washington getting better 24, 42, and 14. That's an abysmal record, but it's a heck of a lot better than what it was their first 2 years. 16, 55, and 9 record for Detroit, who are now becoming kind of a laughing stock in the NHL. Boston finishes first in the Adams at 49, 23, and 8, followed by Buffalo 48, 24, and 8. Toronto 33, 32, and 15, and Cleveland joins the NHL at 25, 42, and 13. That's the California Seals, and they're not fooling anybody. 25 wins is a lot compared to what they were getting in California, but they're not fooling anybody, and they're not drawing either. Cleveland right away, the attendance is not great, and the team is in pretty bad shape. So while Cleveland languishes there, in the Patrick, you've got Philly at 48, 16, and 16. The New York Islanders 47, 21, and 12. So the Islanders are legitimately right up with Philly now. Atlanta 34, 34, and 12, so respectable. And the Rangers 29, 37, and 14. Over in the Smythe division, your division winner has a sub 500 record. St. Louis 32, 39, and 9. It's a bad division. Minnesota 23, 39, and 18. Chicago 26, 43, and 11. Vancouver 25, 42, and 13. And this is now the Colorado Rockies. So before becoming the New Jersey Devils, they were the Kansas City Scouts, lasted 2 years, became the Colorado Rockies, and rewarded the Denver Faithful with a record of 20, 46, and 14. The decision to make the move to Denver was kind of a last minute thing. It was that they had come out of their first 2 seasons with an attendance figure of around 8,000 on average the first 2 years, and their prepaid season tickets were at 2,000. And the owners said, we can't do this, and they sold off the team, and they're moved to Denver, and they stay in the same division. The weird part is, of course, by going from Kansas City to Denver, it's a bit easier for Vancouver to get to Denver than it is Kansas City. It's a bit less travel, but it's still kind of a crap fest for the Canucks, who don't have teams that they can travel to easily. Like, I don't know, LA might have been. But for LA as well, they're now the only team in California. As I said, Seals become the Barons. The Scouts became the Rockies. It is the first time teams have moved since Ottawa in 34-35, and they became the St. Louis Eagles. The WHA, meanwhile, is down to 11 teams. So the struggles continue. You've got 2 teams moving in the NHL. We're going to see contraction soon. You know, a word that the NHL will never use again, but it would make sense in some cases. The WHA is down to 11. So they've gone from this big expansion, all this is great, this is awesome, to, yeah, we're dying. And there's already talks during this season. I have Hockey News magazines from this season where there's talks of the WHA merging with the NHL, and the NHL saying, we don't really need to merge. You guys can just die. That was basically the attitude of owners in the NHL. They felt that the WHA had tried to come in and steal their thunder and take their players, and by buying off some of their big name players like Hull and Howe and whatnot, and Cheevers at one point too, that they didn't care what happened to the WHA. That really wasn't their concern. The Montreal Canadiens put up a record of 33, 1, and 6 at home. They lose one game at home all year. May 26th of 1976, the Boston Bruins trade with the Rangers again, and the Rangers might want to stop trading with the Bruins. Ken Hodge goes to the New York Rangers for Rick Middleton. And Middleton, of course, goes on to a pretty solid career with Boston, and Ken Hodge, by the time he got to the Rangers, was kind of done. So, added to other players that they picked up from Boston that are beyond their prime, the Rangers keep doing this. And it is something the Rangers continue to do for a while, where they decide they're in a rush to try to win that Stanley Cup, the first one since 1940, a chant which hasn't started yet, but we're getting there. June 24th, 1976, Bobby Orr, as a free agent, signs with the Chicago Blackhawks. Kind of a dark day, personally, I feel, because he should have retired a Bruin. October 7th, 1976, Stan Mikita hits 1,300 points. He's the third player to reach that level, and one of the best offensive players in NHL history. March 9th, 1977, the New York Rangers retire Rod Gilbert's number 7. It is the first number retired by the New York Rangers organization. So kind of a key thing there. And Gilbert, a very popular player, and at a time when the Rangers aren't exactly having a proud heritage moment, missing the playoffs and all of that. The Hart Trophy goes to Guy Lafleur out of Montreal. The Art Ross goes to Guy Lafleur out of Montreal. The Norris Trophy goes to Larry Robinson of Montreal. The Calder goes to Willie Plett of Atlanta. So Eric Vale and now Willie Plett. Well, at least Atlanta's drafting well, and they're picking up good, solid rookies. The Vezina goes to Ken Dryden and Bunny Larocque of the Montreal Canadiens. The Adams goes to Scotty Bowman of the Montreal Canadiens because he's coach of Montreal, and look, they got 8 losses. So with only 8 losses, you can't deny him his spot as the best coach. Lady Byng goes to Marcel Dion of the LA Kings. The Masterton goes to Ed Westfall of the New York Islanders. The Pearson goes to Guy Lafleur of the Montreal Canadiens. And the Conn Smythe goes to Guy Lafleur of the Montreal Canadiens. Guy walking away with 4 awards. This is why when I talk about great players in history and I put Guy Lafleur right up there, and people say, and in general it's younger viewers that'll say, well, Guy wasn't that great. He was. It's just when you're living in an era after that, it's easy to kind of discount what came before and say what we're seeing right now is the greatest ever. But Guy Lafleur was one of the greatest players ever. The Patrick Award for growing the game in the States goes to Johnny Busick, Murray Armstrong, and John Mariucci. The first number 1 overall pick that year is Dale McCourt. He's picked by Detroit. He would play 532 games, 194 goals, 284 assists, 478 points. Played for Detroit, Buffalo, and then finished his career with 1 year in Toronto. Actually put up some solid years with Detroit, but ended up scoring less than 200 in his career. First team All-Stars, Marcel Dion, Guy Lafleur, Steve Shutt, Larry Robinson, Borje Salming, and Ken Dryden. So, LA, Montreal, Toronto, Montreal. Second team, Gilbert Perreault, Lanny McDonald, Rick Martin, Denny Potvin, Guy Lapointe, and Rogie Vachon of the LA Kings. So pretty solid first and second teams right there, and a lot of Hall of Famers that end up in that group. I'm trying to think, is anybody that's not a Hall of Famer on the board? The only one that I'm pretty sure the only one that's not a Hall of Famer is Martin. So there you go. I put him in my Hall of Fame. NHL, do your job. Put him in yours. Well, Hockey Hall of Fame. It's not the NHL. Anyways, all right. Preliminary round. So again, top 3 in each division make the playoffs. The first place team in each division gets a bye into the second round, and the other 8 teams are seeded 1 through 8, and we decide who wins from there. The New York Islanders sweep the Blackhawks in 2. Buffalo sweeps Minnesota in 2. So that's how it's supposed to work. LA beats the Atlanta Flames in 3, and the Toronto Maple Leafs, proving once again that they're really strong in a playoff format, take out Pittsburgh in 3. And I'm not kidding about that either. Toronto traditionally has been pretty solid in playoffs. I know people are going to say, well, they don't win cups. They haven't won one since 1967. But the effort is always there. And that's key for me. Quarterfinal, Montreal sweeps the Blues. So the Blues win their division. Doesn't matter. They don't win a game. Philadelphia beats Toronto in 6. So again, there's no upset there. Boston over LA in 6. No upset there. And the Islanders sweep Buffalo. So the good feeling of Buffalo and the French connection is doused by the New York Islanders. And yet, because of what happens in the next round, semifinals, Montreal beats the Islanders in 6. The narrative's starting to become, can the Islanders get over the hump? Again, I've got some old Hockey News magazines that both through eBay listings that I've found and through subscribers as well, who I'd like to thank. which basically state the Islanders, can they win it? Can they do it? Maybe they can't, and they talk about different reasons they can't do it and different reasons they could do it. It's interesting looking back because, of course, we know they're going to be a dynasty. It's just a matter of time. Boston beats Philly in 4. What does that set up in the final? Okay, repeat after me. Boston and Montreal is a bad matchup for Boston. Montreal wins game 1 7-3. They win game 2 3-0. They go to Boston. They win 4-2 to take a 3-0 series lead. And then they win in Boston in overtime 2-1 to sweep the series. The only team that gives Montreal any kind of headache is the Islanders. So Boston gets swept in the finals. I'm sure Don Cherry wasn't happy about it. Playoff goal leader is Schmotz, Bobby Schmotz. Assist leader, Guy Lafleur with 17. Schmotz had 11 goals. Points leaders, Guy Lafleur with 26. Your wins leader, Ken Dryden with 12. Jerry Cheevers is next with 8. Stopped at 8 because they didn't win a single game in the finals. Now, as an interesting side note, the Kansas City Scouts finished up their time with a record of 27 wins, 110 losses, and 23 ties. 374 goals for, 679 goals against, and no playoffs. The California Seals won 182 games. They lost 401. They had 115 ties. They scored 1,826 goals and allowed 2,580 and made the playoffs twice, winning 0 rounds. And yet, people will argue, well, they didn't support hockey. They didn't have hockey to support, is my point. When a team is mismanaged and they do nothing but lose, and I've made this comparison before, it's sort of like how Vancouver wasn't an NBA city when we had the Grizzlies. Vancouver might have been an NBA city, but we had the Grizzlies. And the Grizzlies, again, might have worked hard, but they weren't very well run. There were a lot of draft mistakes. There were a lot of other mistakes, whether it was trades or free agents or whatever. And when a team is run really badly and they just can't win, and then a city gets labeled as, well, you guys won't support a team, I find that kind of odd because almost league-wide, minus a few, and I'm talking Montreal, Toronto, and a few of the big teams will support a losing team. But in general, your attendance does fade when you know your team isn't going to win that night. It does tend to kind of hurt ticket sales. So I feel bad for Kansas City. I feel bad for Oakland. Although you now have the San Jose Sharks, which is not Oakland, but it's in that region. And Kansas City, they have a building. They just don't have an owner. So I get asked every now and then, do you think Kansas City could support a team? I think their previous experience might work against them. But again, we have Atlanta in the league right now. And Atlanta had 2 shots. So it's just a matter, I think, of finding the right owner. And then I think Kansas City absolutely could support a hockey team. Could. But if they put up a record like that again, it'll be a struggle. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And again, this is the season that saw the best team, I believe, in NHL history. The 76-77 Montreal Canadiens, who dominated everything. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.